In this video, we are going to be doing an overview of one of the toughest, meanest light assault mechs of the Star League era, and one which used advanced technologies from the moment it was first brought online. Immensely oversynced, so much so that it could run cool even with 2 active engine hits on its huge frame, this Battlemech was rightly feared from the moment it took its first steps. Its name also seems fitting in some way, as any Mechwarrior who might face it down may feel as they are in the midst of being pummeled by a less than savory actor. Now, with all of that said, let us begin to examine Maltech's Corporation's Thug. An assault mech weighing in at 80 tons, the Thug entered service in 2572. And was at the bleeding edge of technological advancement when it was created. It can be tracked down to Ian Cameron himself in many ways, asking for his forces to be as advanced as possible, and the Star League would commission Maltech's Corporation to build an effective successor to the Warhammer, something the company was already in the concept phase for. What resulted was a mech which weighed 10 tons more, but used advanced technology to rid itself of almost every shortcoming the Warhammer seemed to have, while losing some of its effectiveness against infantry. In fact, this mech was an overwhelming success by almost every measure, even with some detractors pointing out that it was oversynced, as well as potentially misusing some of its tonnage otherwise when it could have increased its offensive capabilities. All the same, the Thug would gain a fearsome reputation as one of the toughest mechs of its time. But all things come to an end, and the Thug's production facilities would be destroyed in 2835, resulting in Maltech's devolving into a holding company, which would license the design out to Earthworks. The Thug would be produced from this manufacturer, but in a severely downgraded form, losing much of the advanced technology, but still proving to be a capable, if rare, design. One organization that would maintain its original Star League era variants is Comstar, and eventually their Comguard units. And these would prove to be a powerful set of machines even in the battlefields of 3050 and ahead. They would be one design, standing strong against their clan counterparts, despite centuries of difference. The primary configuration of the Thug during the Star League from 2572 forward is the indomitable THG-11E, a mech built to use the bleeding-edge technology of the Star League that was available at its inception. This monstrous light assault would be powered by a 22.5-ton Pitman 320 Fusion Standard engine, giving it a maximum speed of 64 km per hour. Or 6 movement points in the tabletop game. This allows the 11E to match its primary competitor, the Warhammer, in overall speed. This is important as, of course, if it was slower, it would not be able to keep up with formations which the 70-ton mech was designed to move with, and the Thug would also lag behind the necessary strategic movement speed of most medium and heavy battle line formations. This movement is also more than adequate for a mech of its tonnage, and gives it some tactical options when facing off against faster opposition, as to avoid being overwhelmed. For its sinking capacity, the THG-11E is one of the coolest running battle mechs of its time, and is dramatically overcooled in fact. It possesses 18 double heat sinks, giving it a huge total of 36 sinking capacity to keep the mech cold running. If it fires all of its weapon systems and ran, the Thug would generate 30 points of heat in total. This may be seen as a liability, but the truth is, this means that it can even take an engine hit or two and still be able to function at full combat effectiveness, despite the very serious damage that entails. While the Thug may be oversynced, despite the cries of some meaning it's underarmed, it possesses a practical mech and tank killing arsenal of weaponry that will brutalize, break, and scatter almost any opposition it comes into contact with in the same approximate weight class. For long and medium range engagements, installed with one in each arm is a pair of Tigart PPCs. These two particle cannons collectively do very big damage, and aren't ammunition dependent. Unlike the Marauder or the Warhammer as well, it simply isn't going to overheat firing its main cannons either, meaning it can keep going as long as it's functioning on the field of battle. The minimum range of 3 hexes on these energy weapons can be an issue, however it is mitigated by the other 2 weapon systems on board. Those are specifically a pair of Baikal SRM missile racks with 6 tubes each, with one being mounted in each side torso. These 2 launchers offer the Thug an incredible hard punch at close range, and on top of that also work in conjunction with the PPCs, as they shred the armor off the target first, before the missiles scatter over them as a barrage, looking to hit vital areas across the enemy mech. Its 1-2 punch combination, and the ability to fire every turn with its PPCs regardless of its chances to hit, due to its incredible cooling regime, makes the Thug an exceptionally deadly combatant, not only during its introduction in 2572, but more or less in almost every era since. To finish our examination, we'll be looking at this endo-steel structured Juggernaut's protection. The Thug is clad in 15.5 tons of standard armor, making it as protected as an AWS-8Q Awesome, and more heavily protected than an ON-1-K Orion. This also means it has 50% more armor than the design it was meant to overcome, namely the Warhammer, and even outperforms the Marauder in the same realm, a mech 5 tons lighter. To add to all of this, it also has a case system for its ammunition, preventing internal explosions from onboard ordnance from spreading outside of the torso they are locked into. To say the least, the Thug is exceptionally survivable. Heavily armed, heavily armored, and able to move with grace for its tonnage, the Thug 11E lives up to its reputation, as it's able to punch down against heavies that would dare to try to engage it under almost all circumstances, and even might be able to punch up, having a real chance of defeating mechs such as the Battlemaster in one-on-one engagements. But Battletech often isn't a battle of duels, and the Thug fits very well into heavy lances that the Warhammer once did, as it was designed to do. To say that the 80-ton Colossus is perfect would be a lie, but to say that it is not a terrifying sight on the battlefield would be a far greater mistruth. The 11E is as brutish and brutal as its name entails, and any experienced Mechwarrior who faces down this thing during the Star League era would know it. Even the clans, centuries later, despite having evolved past the use of this machine, would rediscover this truth. But the 11E is hardly the only Thug ever constructed. It has a more than respectable downgrade package from the Succession Wars, and there are a series of upgrades for the machine, though some of them may not be that noteworthy. We'll be covering 2 of them here, but this is hardly all of them. After the destruction of Maltrix's primary facilities in 2835, the Thug's only lifeline would be units produced by Earthworks under license, but with more primitive technologies. The Marik-based manufacturer would indeed rise to the challenge, creating a very capable 80-ton mech, and almost matching the sheer ferocity of the original. It does indeed lose several key systems, namely its endo-steel structure, double heatsinks, and case systems. And though this is most definitely a loss, it's not a complete one. It still goes on to possess 19 standard heatsinks, making it almost heat neutral while firing its twin PPCs. Once targets come into closer range, instead of twin SRM-6s, it has twin SRM-4s, which allow it to still deploy significant bombardments on targets. Because it runs hotter, the 10E is a step down, of course, but it almost is as protected with 14.5 tons of armor, and almost matches the original in many respects. for a mech trapped in the Succession Wars, it would perform very well, though would not be produced in huge numbers, and would never be able to live up to the original's high bar of success, or the use of its advanced technology. Truthfully, there are few divergences from the Thug's core design, with a few variants only simply replacing out PPCs for ERPPCs or adding onboard components. Though this is not wholly the case, it is largely the case. Even Comstar and the Word of Blake made few alterations to this dangerous design. But during the Dark Age, the Thug would receive a significant retrofit in the form of the THG-13U, creating a bizarre but horrifying monster. To start with, it replaces out the traditional PPCs with a pair of snub-nose PPCs instead, pushing the Thug towards being a closer range combatant. Then, its missile systems go from SRMs over to newer and more versatile MML systems, namely MML-3s. But the real changes come in two forms. Firstly, it has triple strength Myomer, giving it enhanced melee damage as well as potentially enhanced speed. Then, it possesses a supercharger for its engine. This boosts the Thug's speed for an 80-ton assault mech to over 100 kilometers per hour, or 10 movement points. That is not the most terrifying part about all of this, because it has 20 tons of advanced ballistics reinforced armor, meaning that its protection takes half damage from missiles, autocannons, and the dreaded Gauss rifle family. It also has so much of it, it's still heavily protected from laser-based weapons. Though it is of course very different from the primary model in many ways, and almost a true divergence, the 13U is frankly a horrifying battle mech to have to face down, as it literally runs into close proximity with its targets and delivers massive kicks and punches at 100 kilometers per hour, ignoring every form of ammunition-based weapon being fired at it while it's on its way. The Thug is a battle mech which has survived for centuries, and though it was only remotely seen after the first two Succession Wars, it has always been a force to be reckoned with. Because there has been a rarity associated with it, perhaps some mech warriors during the Succession Wars, or even during the clan invasion, may not have fully understood its potential, but the enemies of the Star League Defense Forces certainly did. And the enemies of the Draconis Combine appear to be understanding it now in the Ilclan era. Because if people want to screw around with the Thug is going to let them find out. Thank you for joining me here today. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. There is new content on this channel very frequently, and I'd appreciate your support. Also, a huge thank you to all of the YouTube members who support this channel, as these videos are possible because of viewers like you. With that, I will catch everyone in the comment section below.